I realized, okay, there's still some work that you need to do because, when you've gone through healing, you think you've arrived sometimes, but it's not until you go through the thing that you've healed from that you realize, oh, okay, these are still the areas of where I need to heal. Welcome to Coffee Break, where we invite you to walk on the path of self-discovery with us. I'm Fatima, joined by my co-hosts, Liz and Grace, 3 women from different walks of life, united by our passion for purposeful living, authentic connection, and service to others. We recognize that the journey of self-discovery is not a solitary one. You are not meant to walk on this path alone. We need each other in this fast-paced world. Through our vulnerable conversations, we explore life's challenges and provide hope and solutions. We invite you to grab a cup of coffee and take a break with us.
Hi everyone, this is Grace. Welcome to our 3rd episode of Season 1. We've been discussing how more and more people are experiencing deep loneliness and isolation. And one area of life that has changed a lot for many of us is dating. We delve into the experiences of Fatima and Liz, who share their dating journeys and the discoveries that they've learned about themselves and relationships.
All the single ladies, all the single ladies, all the single ladies.
Yes, so today we're here, the 3 of us, as single ladies, and just talking about both of your experiences in your dating journeys. And I think it's important to just start off by defining what exactly that means for you guys, because I know it could mean different things for different people. So what is dating to you, Liz?
Well, I'll start off by saying that the definition of dating has evolved for me over the years. And presently now, I would say that dating for me is a very purposeful and intentional journey of getting to know somebody on a deeper level, with the ultimate goal in mind of building a life together and that person being a life partner.
Well, for me, I haven't had a lot of experience dating because I'm Muslim, and in our culture, we have a set way of getting to know someone for the sole purpose of marriage. And so I've been married 2 times, and each time we followed the halal or permissible way of getting to know each other. Well, because I've been divorced, I decided that one of the things I think I skipped because I didn't date before marriage. When I was in high school or college, I didn't really prioritize that. There's a lot that you can learn about yourself when you have interactions with men. And so I didn't have a lot of interactions with men. And so I decided that in this season in my life that I just didn't want to make another hasty decision. And I decided that it would be okay for me to take some time to get to know people and to get to know myself.
So how did you do that?
Yeah, it's so funny you would ask that because now that I'm saying it, it sounds so crazy and counterintuitive. But for me, it just seemed like, okay, I'm not someone who easily interacts with the opposite sex. And so I realized I was going to have to just be gung-ho in order for me to make this happen. And so I just decided to download apps, and I set a goal for myself to meet men in a public situation in a very halal manner and get to know them over coffee. And because I'm an achiever and I come from a background in sales, I figured, the more people I met, the better the odds of increasing my ratio of success. So I set a goal of 25 coffee dates to just really see what was out there, who was out there. I didn't realize it was going to be such a huge journey of discovery, but that's what it turned out being.
Wow, 25 coffee dates. That is incredible.
By the way, I didn't even get close. Not even close.
I did tell her at the very beginning, that's quite an ambitious goal.
Right,
I was like, nope, I can do it. I set goals and I achieve them.
On a very short timeline.
Right.
Yeah, what was the timeline? What was the goal?
I thought I could get it done by my birthday, and I started in the summer, so it was like less than 6 months.
Wow. Oh my goodness.
But that's because, I didn't have the experience, but now I know. It's not about the quantity, it's about the quality.
Well, I'm so curious because, that's a very unique experience that you put yourself through. I'm wondering, what did you take out of that? Is there any lessons that kind of came from that you either learned about yourself, about other people?
Well, before I get to lessons and discoveries, I'll say that when I downloaded the apps, what happens is people swipe and you swipe, and you're spending a lot of time swiping. And then once you connect with those people, you're spending time on the app trying to decide who would you want to have a conversation with. And then you're spending a lot of time having conversations. And then you finally make it potentially to meeting face to face. So, because I didn't have a clear idea of what that process would be like, I went into it kind of naively thinking that, well, I was also jaded too. One part of me was like, I know these people out here are faking, they're catfishing. Who are these people? I didn't have a lot of trust. But I actually have to say, I did meet a lot of decent men who had great stories, great personalities. I will say that. But it was very time consuming, and it started to bring up feelings inside of myself of inadequacy, of anxiety. I just felt like I wasn't controlling the process was controlling me. And at some point I realized, okay, there's still some work that you need to do, because when you've gone through healing, you think you've arrived sometimes, but it's not until you go through the thing that you've healed from that you realize, oh, okay, these are still the areas of where I need to heal. What about you, Liz?
Wow, that's so good. I would say for me, when I first opened my heart and mind back up to the idea of dating, and because like Fatima, I didn't really have a lot of experience interacting with men. And also, I didn't really have many good examples of what healthy dating is supposed to look like, or even healthy relationships in general. So, coming from that and just trying to expose myself more, put myself out of my comfort zone, through that process, I didn't really have a strong end goal, because before then, I felt that with guys, I tended to overcommit myself in rushing things and thinking, oh, this person is my person. So I would not have very clear boundaries, or letting them have access to my heart too early, things like that. So I kind of took a couple of steps back, and in going into dating again, I had a lot of walls up and a lot of mistrust. And I realized through that process that that was not the right way to approach dating again. And my direction was quite loose. I just was thinking, oh, let me just step out of my comfort zone and meet people, but without a very clear intention. And that kind of got me into trouble, because then I was just going with the flow of what these guys, what their intention was, or what their flow was, which was not always pure, which is what I deeply wanted, but didn't know how to express or navigate. So, and then I was single for a very long time after that. I kept myself very distanced because,
Yeah, I've been single for 6 years.
right. I just wanted to get in alignment with God and what He really wanted to see from me in terms of navigating relationships. And I had a lot of healing to do as well. Then I went into another time of, more recently, I suppose, of opening myself back up to dating again, and with this fresh perspective.
From what you're saying, it sounds like it's really important to go into dating with a clear idea of what you're looking for.
Right.
Which I don't think people often do, or maybe they do, which is great.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I think that was the thing. I didn't have a clear intention, except for this loose idea of getting to know myself through having more interactions with the opposite sex, right? But through that process, yeah, I certainly did get to know myself, but it wasn't in the way that I thought. I've always been hyper independent, and I've prided myself on standing on my own 2 feet and not needing anybody, and just relying on God, and doing a lot of work on believing that I'm worthy, and self-love, and all those things that society tells us we should focus on. And I didn't understand until recently, and my mind is still blown from the research that we've done, that actually, and I'm going to read this quote, Our brain assigns our partner the task of being our secure base, the person we use as an emotional anchor and a safe haven, the one we turn to in time of need. We are programmed to seek their emotional availability. So I was really shocked to find out that it was actually healthy and normal and best practice, really, to have your person. I had convinced myself that, I'd be just fine. And I still believe you'll be just fine. But God created us to want to be in relationship. And just because our society, 65% of relationships in America are failing, it does not negate the fact that it's God's way. And so the quote that I just read is from Amir Levine, Attached, The New Science of Adult Attachment and How It Can Help You Find and Keep Love. I'm telling you all, I was so shocked. And then after that, because from childhood, I've been hyper independent because that's how I was raised, to negate my needs, to subdue my needs for the good of all. Emotions were something that wasn't okay to have. And so I guess over the years, suppressed and became more and more fearful or dismissive, judgmental of people who needed people. Basically, I would be like, I don't need anybody, right? So that was a huge discovery for me.
Wow, that's really powerful. I feel like I'm kind of in a similar place too, of hyper independence, and also learning that from a young age, having to take care of myself and having to take care of my siblings. And I think learning even from my parents and the relationships around me, the culture of my parents' generation is very much like PDA and emotional intimacy and all of those things. You don't really see that in my parents' generation. I feel like a lot of Korean Americans can relate to that. And so I definitely relate in that experience of learned behaviors.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. I didn't even know what emotional intimacy was when I first started dating, and what healthy emotional intimacy really is, what that looks like. And yeah, let alone considering my own needs. I never had an experience where I was expressing personal emotional needs. I was always going with the flow of the other person and attending to their needs. The focus was always, what do they need from me and how I can support them. I never really considered myself to have significance in a relationship or throughout the process of dating. So that has been something that I've really been learning, is that I set a certain direction, an intention, and I have a responsibility also to have a space where me and the other person in the relationship can be vulnerable, emotionally vulnerable and open.
Yeah, and what I'll say about that, for me going into my marriages, it was very responsibility and duty focused. What is my role as a wife? What is my role as a mother in the context of being Muslim? And so I don't think I took any time before getting married to reflect on what are my needs. And so my needs once again took a backseat. So it was only recently that I realized that hyper independence is actually diametrically opposed to connection, because the only way that you can connect with people is through true connection with your person, is through emotional intimacy. And so that is a huge discovery for me. It's something that, like I said, I didn't really grow up with. And it was a shocking discovery. I also realized that there's attachment styles. And that's how I ended up reading the book Attached, because I didn't even really pay attention to attachment styles. I think the only time I thought about it at one point was as a parent for my kids. And so when we were meeting in a coffee shop that day, right, we were talking about how we thought we were ready for relationships or this whole dating thing. And I realized that there's 3 types of attachment styles. I'm not a scientist or researcher, so I would do your own research, but it's 3. It's the secure, and those are the people who easily hold space for emotional availability and vulnerability and intimacy. And then it's the anxious, where they have a fear of rejection and abandonment. So the way that they do it is to be overly
Overcompensate.
nervous,
People pleasing.
hiding their own emotions, letting, the other person direct the flow, all of that. And then on the other side of that is the avoidant, where what they do is ultra hyper independence. I can stand on my own. They fear people pressuring them, and they don't like conflict. They don't want to lose their independence, because the only place I feel safe is trusting me. Mm-hmm. So as you can see, my primary style is avoidant, because my whole thing is I have to, take care of me so I can take care of my family, right? Mm-hmm. And so when I realized that I had that style, that was another big discovery and aha moment for me. And I was able to think back through my relationships and say, okay, I see where my reluctance to let my guard down didn't benefit the relationship.
Yeah. And I feel like another trait of avoidant is anytime it gets too real, it's like everything is pointing at signs to just run away.
Right. Deactivate. Right. Deactivation strategies. All of a sudden, he chews too loud. He didn't call me exactly on time.
Looking for reasons. Right.
To pull back.
Right, yeah. So I guess my question for both of you is, how do you approach dating with an open heart?
Not all at once. Liz?
I will say it takes a lot of practice, and you really have to give yourself grace in the whole process, because you're not just going to learn all of this and have all of this revelation, and then from, your next conversation with the man that it's going to go all rainbows and butterflies.
All of a sudden you're securely attached. Right,
all of a sudden you're securely attached.
Right.
Just because you know what that is supposed to look like. Maybe you have some concept of what it might feel like. But for it to actually play out in conversation, interaction is a whole nother thing. So
it's a process.
It's a process.
Yeah.
It's a process, and it's situational too. Until you're in a certain tough conversation or conflict, you really have to be asking God for a lot of discernment and wisdom. If you're doing that, and also being aware of your own behaviors, your attachment style, how you respond to conflict, how you respond to vulnerability, and also be doing the work and just be trying your best and have faith and belief that the other person will see and receive that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's been some pivotal shifts for me. The first one is I've always relied and trusted in God. However, because of my attachment style, sometimes when I get really revved up, I become focused more on what I think, what my mind is telling me. Focused more on Fatima's will, knowledge instead of God's will. And so now it's all about believing and trusting that whatever God has for me won't pass me. And the good, the pure, all of the things that I'm seeking in a relationship now, someone is seeking me as well. If that's God's will on my life, because you just don't know. Another thing is I have a lot more compassion and empathy for men. And I feel like a lot of us are out here just trying to do our best. We've all gone through childhood that was messy and had a lot going on, and that men are not our enemy and relationships are not our enemy, and that my life could be richer and enhanced by a God-centered relationship.
And something that I want to add too is that, we've been talking a lot about healing and healing yourself and realizing that that journey never ends. But when it comes to dating, that I don't think you have to expect yourself to be fully healed to put yourself out there and date. I think it's more of, are you doing the work on yourself in the process of it? Mm-hmm.
And that things are not just happening happenstance. There is a reason why our society is the way it is around relationships. I would say it's the pop culture society view on relationships that people are getting distracted by. Some of that is truth, but it doesn't measure up to God's truth. Does that make sense?
Yeah, there's a lot of conflict and mixed messaging, confusion when you look at modern dating and the way that things are trending, the way that our culture is evolving or changing. I think the best that we can do is just to focus on what we know that God says is right and what he says is the truth, and having faith in that.
Yeah, like one thing you will hear a lot in pop culture and in all the reels and stuff is that, match energy with energy. Don't text first. Men need to chase. I'm not disputing any of that, but I feel like that's not the focus. Well, it's not the focus for me. To me, it's about, can I bring my authentic self and the way that I like to show my interests to the table, and the person brings theirs to the table. And it may look completely different than the next couple, and it may not mirror at all the pop culture advice, tips, trends. And another thing that, it does promote is for women to like get very comfortable being on their own and not needing a man, to the point that Liz and I laugh all the time, and you too, we don't even know what our needs are, right? We talked about that earlier. And so one of the ways I'm trying to like access what my needs are is to just practice asking people for help. Let's forget relationships. I just mean in general. Do I ask people for help? Do I feel safe enough to say, hey, I don't know how to do this, or I don't have the capacity for this. Can you help me? Even take the trash out. Simple request around the house, starting with that.
Yeah, so I think for our viewers listening too, a challenge for you could be to ask one of your loved ones that are around you, one of your friends or your significant other, for something that you need.
Right.
You might have to search really deep down in your heart.
You might have to create it, and it's something easy that's not hard for you to ask for at first, because we're practicing, And I know that there's a spectrum. There are some women that, what their work is. For some people, their work is not being so dependent. So we're talking about our personal journey and our discoveries for ourselves, and just inviting you to kind of just hear a perspective. We're both avoidant, but there's a lot out there about anxious attachment and secure attachment and all of that. And by the way, hope is 50% of the population is securely attached. So
Wow. That was from the book?
Yeah, that's from the book. And so,
wow.
There's some securely attached people out there. And another great thing about attachment styles is that they're not fixed. You can become more practice at having secure responses, secure interactions, secure expressions of emotions. It'll take practice, but it can be done. You can move from anxious to secure, and from avoidant to secure.
And I think a lot of that comes from being aware, like
right.
Finding your triggers and recognizing when you're having thoughts or negative cycles of looping thoughts or whatever that might look like for you, and recognizing when that's happening. And then you can self-soothe or realize you're in a situation, like if you're avoidant, oh, maybe I'm looking for a reason to run away when actually I feel like I want to draw closer. And recognizing that and then acting in that, I feel like that's when you're moving away. And you're moving towards being more secure.
Yeah, I've been practicing, how does my body feel? Because I will intellectualize anything in a moment. Oh, I read in this book, and da-da-da-da-da. Well, according to this research, I hide behind facts and studies all the time. And so I've learned to say, okay, when I feel something, where do you feel it in your body? What does it feel like? Is it warm? Is it cold? Why do you think you're feeling it there? As a practice to be able to even become emotionally available to myself. I think one time Liz said somebody told her she gaslights herself.
Oh, we're really exposing on this podcast right now.
Sorry. But seriously, I'll negate my own emotions and feelings and pack them away. I used to actually train on a concept of putting your emotions in a box. I used to call it put it in a box. Put it on the shelf and just carry on with life. And so accessing those emotions, putting them in front of me, allowing myself to feel them, whether it's shame, exhilaration, hope, whatever it is, to lean into it, because I have to have some emotional availability, vulnerability, and intimacy with myself, really, if I can
do it with another person. Right.
Right.
And I just want to say that you listening today might be securely attached, and you'd be like, what are these people talking about? But I again, we're speaking from our personal experiences and what we've learned. And one of the commonalities we've found between the three of us is that something in the way that in our families and our upbringings have kind of led us to this point of hyper independence. And yeah, we're all just going through this journey of recognizing what that healing looks like and what it looks like to be okay expressing your needs. Yeah.
And feelings.
Right. Okay, so we've talked about a lot today, and now I'm curious, at this point in your dating journey, what are you looking forward to?
Being self-aware about these things is a lot in the beginning because I'm discovering things that I haven't thought about before about myself. And now being almost hyper aware of that going into dating and having conversations with people is a lot. It's a lot in the beginning, but I'm excited for what will come out of my experience going forward. I do believe that I'm on a path to becoming more securely attached. Learning how to be vulnerable is a big thing for me. There wasn't a lot of room for me growing up to feel safe being vulnerable. And that's a key step to building emotional intimacy with somebody. So I'm looking forward to that. Just learning how to be more vulnerable with people.
To add to that, something that we've talked about in our previous episodes in being vulnerable in all aspects of relationships is, one, knowing that you are worthy, you're worthy of love, and two, giving other people the benefit of the doubt, that they have good intentions. And, especially if you've been hurt in the past, I feel like this can be really hard, but I think that leads to more authentic connection and vulnerability.
I'm very much looking forward to this whole way that I'm rewiring the way that I am, which is to stay open, to be curious, to just slow down and see how life is unfolding in front of me, not having a clear-cut plan to how to make anything happen. Deepening my trust, belief, and obedience to God, because I believe that any important, sustaining relationship in your life, God has to be center. And coming out on the other side, whether I'm in a relationship or not, but feeling like I've done the work and that I feel good about talking about my needs, that I've strengthened my ability to be emotionally available, that I hold space for others to be vulnerable. Because not only did I not honor my own emotions, needs, when you don't honor yourself, you don't necessarily honor others. And I kind of expected people, hurry up and bounce back. Okay, you can cry, but let's wipe those tears and buck up. I was always about, yes, feeling your feelings, but moving forward as quickly as possible, sweeping a lot of that under the rug, intellectualizing. So not only my growth and practice and moving closer to secure attachment, but holding space for other people to feel like they can do the same.
That's really powerful. All right. Well, thank you so much, Liz and Fatima, for being so vulnerable today and sharing your experiences with us. I've learned a lot in this discussion, and I'm sure our viewers have as well. We'd love to hear what you all think, what your experiences have been like, and if you have any advice for us, And be sure to follow us on whatever platform you're listening to us on so that you can be updated on all our latest episodes.